Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here for One Art's December 2025 reading. We have a big audience, which is thrilling and well deserved. At the top here, I'm going to share just a couple of things that are on the horizon for One Art. So, not in any way to skip ahead, but for the next upcoming readings, I can even preview, I haven't listed yet the exciting February list. But pardon while I search for this. So, in January 2026, which is already almost here, which is scary, um, we're having Katie Dozier and Tim Green of Rattle. But for those who don't know, Katie is also the haiku editor for One Art and edits or guest edits the annual One Art Haiku Anthology. So that should be a fun reading. And if you don't know, if you haven't listened to the poetry space that they do together, their interplay is very fun. So it'll be delightful, I assure everyone. And then for our February reading, we have not, this is the first time mentioning it, so it's not officially announced yet, but we have Kim Stafford, Todd Davis, Grant Clauser, JD Issop, and Carrie Gunter Seymour. And then real quick, I just want to mention the workshops that are coming up. So Amy, who is with us today as one of our featured readers, Amy Small-McKinney is hosting a workshop on Tuesday, January 13th from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And that is on the subject of speaking to and listening to our aging bodies. And I hope some of you here might consider joining us. Then at the end of January on the 26th, we have a workshop with John Sibley Williams on mastering the epistolary poem, letter poems. And then into February, and then I'll stop there. We have a workshop that will be led by Jennifer Mills Kerr, and that is on the subject of found poetry. So, and Jennifer's with us too in the audience. So now let us go ahead and get started without further ado. So our featured poets today are already mentioned Amy Small-McKinney, Linda Laderman, Laurie Kuntz, and Susan Michele Coronel. Our first reader is going to be Susan. So let me read an intro that I've prepared for Susan. Susan Michele Coronel's debut collection, In the Needle, A Woman, from Finishing Line Press, just out in 2025, won the 2024 Donna Wolf Palacio Poetry Prize. Quick insertion here. Sadly, Susan just sent me this updated bio, and that was how I learned that Donna had passed, which is really sad because I knew her from the Philadelphia area community. Three poems from Susan's collection were nominated for the Pushcart Prize. That's quite a good batting average, so I'm banking on this being a pretty good collection. Susan can tell us more about it. Susan's poems have appeared or are forthcoming in many journals, including Gone Law, Mom Egg Review or MER, Nixes Mate, One Art, Pedestal, Rogue Agent, and SWWIM, which I love. In 2023, Susan won the Massachusetts Poetry Festival's first poem prize, and she lives in Queens. I'll share some links in the chat about where you can find Susan online and her poems in One Art. Susan, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for that introduction. I'm really thrilled to be here and included among such amazing poets. I can't wait to hear Laurie, Linda, and Amy read, and I also see some familiar names and faces. So I'm going to read most of my poems from the new collection, In the Needle of Woman, and end with one that was featured in One Art that's not in the collection. And the book is largely autobiographical, though of course takes a lot of poetic license and interpretation from there. So the first poem I'm going to read is called The Year My Mother Turns Back Time. And just a brief background, it is based on the life of my brother, who sadly passed when he was 19 years old due to an inherited disease. And instead of commemorating him through in a linear fashion, I do that by going back in time. The year my mother turns back time is also the year my brother turns into ashes, scatters like pollen into an invisible sea, carried by trees and wind and leaves. My mother jerks her head backwards to shake a grief that refuses to be shaken off, and time reverses kaleidoscopically. My brother is 16 again, strengthening his biceps, flexing them to lift the TV remote off the wheelchair armrest, and the girl with the mulberry eyes is smiling at him, rolling a lifesaver candy in the folds of her tongue. He marvels at her titanium hair. Then he's 9, running to first base on a softball field, and instead of constantly falling, he's standing upright. The fat on his calves is miraculously shrinking, plump legs easing into lanky sticks, not stilts or spears or crutches, and suddenly he's 6, and we're both gasping for air in a fort under our parents' quilts, where we listen to Casey Kasem's Top 40 countdown. We pretend we're lost and in love, opening the edge of the covers to catch a breath. I force him to tell me his favorite song under threat of tickle torture. Time shifts again like a wobbly chair, and he's a toddler, riotously laughing as I make silly faces and twirl scarves around his playpen. Not a mulberry bush, but a tangle of brambles and wire. Then, in a flash, he's in his crib, throwing toys like river stones, drops of milk staining his bib as he relaxes into the arms of his baby nurse. And he's swimming in a dark corner, not a cave, sinkhole, or lagoon of my mother's womb, twisting to the sound of throbbing blood. The amniotic fluid around his newly formed brain might be tapped, but my mother chooses at the last minute not to do an amniocentesis, even after warnings from her aunts, whose sons also had the disease. Superstitions and salt are spraying from the family tree. Water blossoms spiral around his scoliotic spine and mutated strands of DNA until at last the squeaky mattress where our parents' bodies are beating with new life. Thank you. The next poem is an ancestry poem about my late grandfather. History brings the heart to repent. It is good to praise the grandfather who is dead. Holy love dwelled in your Polish accent, words as thick as shoe polish that you spit out like a curse to mimic the villagers who spat on you. War turns even a language ugly. Your holy world was my grandmother, your first cousin through arranged marriage, who held your hand, kissed the sweet meat between your legs until your sons were born. Then you slept on parallel twin beds, gaze fixed on the ceiling, not across the aisle or through corners of your turquoise eyes. Grandfather, I'm singing this song to you. The lyrics make your snowbird mustache twitch, and you cover your face with a square of white handkerchief. I want to dig deep into soil and moisten my face with your remains, then lightly kiss your forehead like this. My head is so full of regret, holes bored through it like bagels. Holes are where the heart goes, but holes cannot speak. So I say your name, Charles, Charlie, Betzalel in Yiddish. I am walking through the night, the smack of gum against my cheek, streaks of lamplight on your ruined want, holy want, engendering want. Grandfather, foxes and mice burrow underground, furrowing old fields like lines on your wrinkled brow. What secrets did you swallow whole? How I want to cradle you in a crater, ricochet back 40 years to when you asked me to record your stories, and I turned my face away, like a widow looking out a window. I asked you years later, but you said, too late for stories that go to sleep. Gay schluffen. Now there are no stars inside the body, but there is still sugar in my teeth, granular like the first guttural utterances that rip apart shiny pools of stone. I opened my lips as if they were meant to part. You said birth and death are the only events that can enchant this world. The continuum of stars and water will persist as it did long before you entered this world, and as it will long after I depart. Thank you. Uh, the next one is about my daughter, younger daughter, and it's called Younger Daughter Resists Tradition. Younger daughter resists tradition. She tells me one day, I don't want to take Yiddish classes anymore. In Fiddler on the Roof, the youngest daughter insists on leaving the fold because of true love, but to her father, she's a splinter and a cantaloupe, untethered from tradition and from every family who has ever said, stay, follow, without doing it themselves. True love, a violin shivers naked, trills on a hill, attempting to play a familiar tune. But the music escapes through holes in pockets, beguiles even those with the best intentions, singing, look what you've done. Loss is a bone caught in the throat, a sewing needle threaded not once, but in both directions. The only Jewish tradition left for my daughter is food, matzo ball soup, chocolate coins, bagel with lox and cream cheese. What she does not know is that I am trying to keep my balance on a roof whose shingles dangle like warped leaves. There are no prayers of devotion, but reams of remorse, the repeated desecration of our culture through history, confirming that we still sit on rotten hands. I care little for the temple, rituals opening like a can of preserved peaches, but I yearn for the parsley sprig, for the Star of David to be twisted and reimagined, so my children will not lose what came before, without knowing what they're losing, even as I know it's already lost forever. Love is sweet, but better with abyssal salt, a kiss on the punum. Thieves and the dead I've loved knew darkness, like a tattered coat. Children always refuse, but it's still better to ask them to carry something than to come to the table of the future empty-handed. Thank you. The next one is a little shorter, and it's based on a childhood memory and a little political. It's also an ekphrastic poem, so it was inspired by a photograph of a 1981 performance called Entre Vidas by Anna Maria Milino. And it's called Not Walking on Eggshells in Rio de Janeiro. Sorry about that. Not Walking on Eggshells in Rio de Janeiro. The eggs are not aware of how I waltz as I twist and turn around them like a capoeira dancer. I march barefoot around scattered eggs on cobbled streets, navigating a minefield of metaphors, fragility, disorder, hope of new life. When I was 6, Mrs. Biederman set up an incubator in the classroom. I held the eggs against my chest, shells still warm. When the chicks hatched, I let one spring over my wrists, little feet indenting my palms. I inhaled the scent of sawdust and popcorn, fluffy feathers pulsing softly like a bulb. The chick, so tiny and light, I could have crushed it with a flinch of my hand. To avoid the brutality of smashing an egg is an elaborate choreography. Do I swerve enough to avoid complicity in violence? Dictators don't understand metaphors. The rest of us know how dangerous it is to live even one day. Thank you. I have one more from the collection and then one that appeared in One Art. Okay, this is called Older Daughter as Persephone, and it's a prose poem. Older Daughter as Persephone. 1. How Persephone leaves. Persephone says she loves both parents and cannot choose one over the other. But Hades says, choose me because I'm your father, and you know who loves you more. Hades says Persephone's lips are like milk chocolate and that she's a gorgeous sugar plum, his one true love. Persephone tells Demeter, I just want to spend more time with my father. What's wrong with that? First, it's once a week, then half a week, then every week, then a spray of gold dust on the window pane. As Persephone picks narcissus flowers by the plaza, Hades absconds with her in his black SUV. There's no struggle. He plasters white copy paper all over his vehicle with her name and I love yous written in red permanent marker. The gap in the earth closes after them. Persephone resides in a tunnel under Rockefeller Center. Demeter hardly sees Persephone, maybe an occasional weekend on Christmas or her birthday. 2. Hades' magic. Hades' alter ego is Hector, who sings in a mariachi band called Quien Me Gusta La Mejor. His microphone is the wrinkled plum of midnight. Hades wanted to be a priest, but because he loved women too much, he fled the seminary. Hades enlists Persephone to cook enchiladas de carne, horchata, and eggs over easy. Hades teaches Persephone how to clean toilets and make windows sparkle like dragonfly wings. Hades' second wife becomes a bird and lives in a treehouse in Texas. 3. The separation of Demeter and Persephone. When Persephone was in kindergarten, she made drawings for Demeter and wrote I love you so much 50 times. Sometimes she scrawled so many so's they climbed off the page. Now when Persephone texts Demeter, she says she loves her as a mother because she gave birth to her, but that her influence is not part of her identity. When Persephone gets angry, she tells Demeter she's a toxic parent and that she has a special relationship with Hades, that he's made her the person she is today. When a judge asks Persephone where she would like to live, she chooses the obvious answer. The judge says it's not such a bad thing if Persephone pledges her loyalty to Hades and becomes queen of the dead. Sometimes Persephone misses her mother and siblings. Hades says she can visit any time, but before he lets her leave, he layers pomegranate seeds over vanilla ice cream, presents the dessert to her in a scalloped dish garnished with a purple orchid. An anguished Demeter visits Zeus and Hera. She threatens to speed up global warming, lay waste to the crops of North America. Zeus and Hera resolve the matter by ruling that Persephone can spend more time with Demeter in the warmer months, when roses and lilac quiver on their stems, when the sun burns the meadow grasses where meadowlarks roam. The rest of the year she will remain under Hades' spell. 4. Demeter's forgotten daughter. Not many know about Selene, Persephone's sister, whose name means moon. How many moons has Selene not seen Persephone? She yearns to inhale her perfume, emulate her by taking selfies, wearing crop tops and short shorts from Aeropostale. Persephone constantly calls and video chats with Selene. She tells her that she cannot live without her and that she's her queen, her love, her cream puff. Persephone and Hades shower her with wet kisses, extravagant gifts, and sometimes speak disparagingly of Demeter. One day, Selene becomes a young woman and tells Demeter, I want to live with Persephone and Hades. Mother, you'll never compete with the king and queen of the underworld. Demeter shrieks, douses her breasts with salt. Demeter wants sleep to dampen the pain Hades has caused, the sensation of ripping off her ears and casting them into the sea. Demeter's tears water the sheaves of wheat and barley that she cradles in her arms. She lays them down on the ground next to her basket, which brims with bright orange and magenta poppies. She inhales their fragrance until sunrise casts light over the fallow fields. And I'm going to end with a poem that appeared in One Art last year, and it's called Quest. No chainmail for breakfast, no syrup, no toast, just white light bleeding from ships that scud past the shore, dragging me into a chasm of thought. Yoga and meditation tamper the running stream. An axe won't alter my course like an X, but chopping will curse and bless the memory of beautiful befores, crowns of all I ever did and ever wanted. I aim to write for writing's sake, to savor snow and sea shadow and never change my passwords, but I forget them as swiftly as I forget first names. And the last day it rained. Life's not a race, but an unpeeling of layers that reveals at its core a sweet kernel, acceptance, and with it, something more. Thank you so much for listening.
That was wonderful, Susan. Thank you so much. Incredible reading. Early on, a bunch stuck out to me. I'm pretty sure this was a hard poem, but that's the first time I think I've heard the word, I'm going to say it wrong now, kaleidoscopically. Kaleidoscopically. I don't know if I've seen that in a poem before. So that was a nice moment. And I don't know if I heard this one right. Was it holes both through it like bagels?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that killed me. That was great. Wonderful moment, and yearning for the parsley sprig. That was another one that I definitely loved. So thank you. Wonderful reading. Next up, we have Laurie Kuntz. Laurie is an award-winning poet and film producer. She taught creative writing and poetry in Japan, Thailand, and the Philippines. Many of her poetic themes are a result of her working with Southeast Asian refugees in refugee camps in Thailand, the Philippines, after the Vietnam War. In a past life, she was an ESL teacher and published 2 ESL texts that were used widely in ESL programs both nationally and internationally. Laurie has published 7 poetry collections. Her 8th is a full-length collection entitled Shelter in Place that will be published in 2026 by Shanti Arts Press. Shanti Arts, I should say, is a press that quite a few one art poets publish with. And I'll share in the chat a couple links for Laurie's work and where you can learn more. Laurie, thanks so much for being here with us.
Oh, thank you. That was a tough act to follow, Susan, but a stellar act. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be with such wonderful poets and with Mark, who does such great work and with One Art. And it's always wonderful to be published with One Art. This is a season of giving thanks, of miracles, of joy. So I'm going to start out with some positive poems about friendship and family and partners. And this first poem recently was in One Art. So it's called Friendship Like Marriage. In celebration for every year of marriage, there is a symbol, the fragility of paper, the merge of time, the burning passion of wood and copper in its polished shine. What elements symbolize friendship in its stretch of years? And isn't friendship a marriage in kind, with its own separations and secrets splayed across wires, promises untied while riding waves of unbridled trust? My friend, for all our time together, nothing more can be said except I do, I do, I do. And this next poem's for my sister, who is here. Hi, my sister. My sister Robin. This poem is for her. When we talk about our mother. When we talk about our mother, all that sets us apart drifts, kites in a gentle wind colliding. And then the pull of the string, blood and memories, join us like marrow in a bone. There is no more anger. We come together and remember a woman teaching us to be gentle, to be the thread that meets the eye of a needle, to be the world we promised her, to be the other name she gave us, sisters. And this next poem is called Anniversary Again. And in 2022, it appeared in One Art and it was nominated, Mark in One Art, nominated it for a Pushcart Prize. I thank you to this day. Thank you. So grateful to have that. And it did not win, but it should have. Shame on you, Pushcart. So, Anniversary Again. I don't know a love that does not chip away at the day-to-day of what couples us. Every act of creation, also an act of destruction, and memory is history's great reviser. The years pass, the regrets mount, but so does the shared light we both enjoy at sunset. And there's the song of the brown thrasher hidden in our magnolia tree. We strain to catch a glimpse before it flies, this memory implanted on its wings spread, soaring away with a piece of what's been shared. Things we mark as love belong in no engraved setting, but seen in the dusting of gray hairs off the vanity, the sweeping of the dead palmetto bug from under the porch light, ripe pears in a bowl placed on a table, all marking the tart juice of our shared years. The days pass as starlings ignore the boundaries of the skyway. We remain together under the weight of every season, standing some days on a stark precipice, weaving stories into our own private landscape. All we let in under the presence of every necessary ripening thing, like these collected years. Okay. Next poem. Remember the spelling pretests that I think you're all at that age that we used to have those spelling pretests in grammar school that prepared us for the real test. I don't know if kids still do that because now we don't really have time to practice for anything. We're always just thrown into things. But this poem is a poem about practice for the ultimate real thing. And it's called The Pretest. The Pretest. It's the printer again, like a body growing old. The ink runs dry, invisible paper jams, lights that flash without reason, and I call you, and you fix it. After a thankful hug, I ask, what will I do without you? This is surreal to think about when I count backwards to our beginnings, tapping 10 fingers more than 5 times. These days are like spelling pretests, preparing for those difficult words that defy the I before E rule. When I look toward an unreliable future, everything becomes a test. I can mow the lawn, pay estimated taxes, kill the spider, which is really practice for the roach, recognize the flashing fuel light, and know when to press Control, Alternate, Delete. The list of can-dos can go on forever, only because we will not. I know without you I can and will pass these tests, but fail miserably at the same time. And let's see. This next poem is for all the children that are in war-torn places. It's called Recital. Recital. They are practicing in studios, poster-walled bedrooms, on sunlit terraces. Our children learn to paste a smile on their scrubbed and fresh faces for an audience of grown-ups who marvel at the lithe and spirited bodies. On the gilded stage of their lives, children all over the world should be practicing their epaulet, but some are taking other positions in cellars and dank crawl spaces. They should be gliding across polished floors, but today they pirouette into evacuation routes, keeping beat with the not-so-distant thunder. And as Mark said, I spent many years working with refugees in refugee camps. And my husband tells me my best poems were based on that time period. And so I'm going to read one of the poems coming from that time period. And actually, I'd like to dedicate this poem to my friend Joyce, who's here today. And I kind of forgot about this poem. And I was visiting Joyce a few years ago, and I saw this poem on her coffee table in a book with other things that she liked to read. And I said, oh, wow, this poem. I forgot about it. So I thank Joyce for reminding me about this poem, and I'm going to read it tonight. It's called Composition. Composition. Soon Lee has a better story to tell, but tonight the teacher has assigned physical descriptions. She struggles to shape herself with words, measuring her life in feet and inches. She has a better story to tell. How she carried her son through the Cambodian minefields, giving him pebbles to suck so he wouldn't cry out for water. By now he might have reached her height. Trying to forget, she remembers, alone in night school in a dusty California town. Tonight's assignment is physical descriptions. The teacher paces up and down the rows, looks over her shoulder to say, 10 minutes left. Soon Lee's tired slits of eyes ache from her daytime sewing job. She writes words, dark leather creased skin. Her scrawny frame sags. She concentrates on her composition. In conclusion, she writes, I'm not beautiful, but I'm beautifully brave. Okay, I have maybe 3 more. I think I have time for them. Hope. Okay, good. On the brink. It is a long, languishing day of clouded light and warm gusts. The wind coming from the west. Go west, young man. It seems we venture west, thinking west of us is best of us. We waste so much time trying to be someone else, somewhere else, something else. We live on a brink of storm, brink of heartache, brink of all that breaks. The axe that floats above each head should be more helpful, used for slicing into that felled tree, once giving apples, now giving us kindling for fires that will burn, leaving us on the brink of all the smoldering embers. And this next poem is brand new. I'm a little afraid to, how it is to read brand new poems. I actually just revised it 2 hours ago, but I'm going to be brave and read it. It's called Balancing Loss. When I could not smell the essence of lavender you told me would help me relax, I reached for the coconut oil that you told me would make my cavities go away. And when I could not decipher its richness, I then Googled my fear. Even an old-fashioned cold, like the one I caught, could strip the smell from my day-to-day. And when I complained to my neighbor, the tall Haitian man, about this lost sense, he said in a lilting voice that he would trade places with me as he pointed to his heart monitor, grazing each missing beat of kindness. And on the other side of the street, in the ivy-covered bungalow, was a young woman who lost her hair and libido. And then I followed your advice. Sniff peanut butter, lemon, garlic, peppermint. Train the brain to remember the scent of things that once inhabited life and skin and afternoon snacks. And at the same time that I lost my scent, my patanga bush turned brown and lost glossy green leaves. And there was loss all around. Days losing an hour of light, a child losing innocence, a country losing its spirit, and me losing my sense of smell, which Google says most likely will return in a matter of weeks, unlike others who would easily trade places with me, or the deciduous oaks, or the wane of moonlight, because every loss is wrapped in pain unmeasured, waiting for a hand to reach out in an embrace. Okay, thank you so much for listening. I have my last poem, very short one. Thank you again, One Art and Mark and Louisa, for thinking of me, and it's always such a pleasure to be involved with anything in One Art. This one's called My Conversation with Death. My conversation with death. It is a short chat. Death has no time to dilly-dally. Get to the point, death smirks. So it brings me to the point of my life. In spite of all my airy accomplishments, I cannot impress death to take a sabbatical, a leave of absence, or weekends off. With every plea, death gives a huge guffaw. All my requests bore death to death. Live well, everyone. Thank you.
Well, that was a treat, Laurie. Thank you so much. I fully agree. You were definitely snubbed by Pushcart, and it's unfair, and we should look into that. Um, it's always interesting when someone, I mean, regardless of how close they are to us, says like, you write the best poems from like this period. And that was a stunning poem about, the refugee camp experience. Um, but that's interesting. Like when someone on the outside says like this is where you sort of get the most powerful poems from. So something to reflect on. So our next reader is Linda Laderman. Linda is a Michigan poet and writer. Her poetry has appeared in or is forthcoming in many journals, including Eclectica, The MacGuffin, SWWIM, Action Spectacle, The Westchester Review, and One Art. She's a past recipient of Harbor Review's Jewish Women's Prize. Her micro chapbook, What I Didn't Know, I Didn't Know, can be found online, and I'll drop a link in the chat regarding that. In past lives, she was a journalist and taught English at Owens Community College in Lourdes University in Ohio. For nearly a decade, she was a docent at the Seckelman Holocaust Center near Detroit. And Linda, please take it away.
There we go. Am I unmuted now?
Yes, success.
Okay, I couldn't have planned it any better. My first poem following Laurie's last poem. Laurie and Susan, your readings were phenomenal, so I'm even more nervous than I was to start with. But this first poem just appeared in One Art in July, and Mark and Louisa in One Art nominated it for Best Microfiction, so I want to give it a little attention. The morning air is all awash with angels, Richard Wilbur. A morning with my dead father. This is the morning I'll spend with you. I'll have the conversation I've been putting off. The way a child sheds the coat her mother insists she wear despite the April sun warm like the nape of a newborn's neck. This is the morning I'll say what it was like to live inside a widow's weeds, how it tangled my breath, stole my words. This is the morning I'll think of what's possible and make space for you to enter. When I hear the leaves rustle, I'll believe you're listening. I'll rest on a rock near the lake and throw pebbles in the water and consider each ripple as thoughts that bounce between us. This is the morning I'll reimagine you as the young man in the snapshot I found. You leaning against a 1938 Dodge sedan, fedora tipped to the side, smiling with a hint of swagger, confident that the ground beneath you would hold. I'll talk like I remember you cradling my baby body, how you called her song of my heart in the love letters you wrote from Kentucky. Who were you then? This is the morning I want to know. This next one, I feel the way that Laurie did. Mark nominated this for a Pushcart, and Laurie, both should have won. So um, this is called Final Score. June's heavy humidity held our breath in its hands. We wondered if it was safe to sit through the heat, but Cleveland was in town and the Tigers were on fire. Street vendors kept cool with plastic fans. You stayed in the car. I paced the parking lot. Come on, we'll miss the first pitch. Your face paled when I ordered our usual, 2 grilled kosher hot dogs. You shook your head like I'd suggested a pig roast on Shabbat. Instead, you bought a beer and nursed it until we stood to stretch. Together 10 years, and that was the first time I saw you drink beer in a ballpark. The Tigers held their lead. You said nothing, not even when we watched the parade of players' wives climb the stairs in stilettos and miniskirts. I pointed to the one in head-to-toe Gucci, hoping you'd laugh and roll your eyes, then yell, like always, for Charlie, the singing Italian ice guy, to come by. You barely blinked when you caught a foul ball, as if it flew from the sun into your open palm. When you loosened your grip, it dribbled down the steps until an usher grabbed it and threw it back. Look, luck fell into your lap twice. For months, I'd lie awake and replay that day. Why did I nudge you from the car? What else had I missed? By the time the EMTs reached us, your body was slack. I ran behind the stretcher shouting questions. I don't remember what I did with our season's tickets. Maybe I gave the rest to a neighbor or shredded them. I know the Tigers won, but I can't recall the final score. Because Amy's going to be teaching a workshop on aging bodies, I wanted to include 2 poems that speak to that in a way I can absolutely relate to. This next one also appeared in One Art. Um, I'm always so happy and proud when I have a poem in One Art. This is called Burnt Toast. I don't know how to be old. Everyone I loved died years before old age. My mother, father, friends taken without warning. Most days, my brain lies to me. It says I'm young. It doesn't take long for my body to say otherwise. Yesterday, the woman who colors my hair watched me struggle to open a bottle of water. She offered to help. Her look said, "Poor old lady, I'll never be old like that." Any bit of patience I possess has vanished like the years. My therapist tells me to be understanding with my husband, who is fine with being old. When he asks, "What did you say?" for a third time, don't confront. Answer again and again if necessary. She says I shouldn't complain, that most women my age would give anything for a man who rubs their back. The first thing I smell in the morning is the bitter scent of my husband's burnt toast. He says he can't smell it, so I crack open the window and wonder why we have tiles that read "Home is love and joy" on the sill when we still argue about silly things. Like the time I asked if he'd move the porcelain chicks from the middle of the table onto a shelf. He declined. Our conversations are riddled with deliberations. We discuss the dishwasher. Should we run it or wait? What do we want to eat tonight? Carry in or cook? Catch a movie or stream something to watch? Today was too cold to be out. I barely made it to the grocery. Sleep, when it comes, is a relief. Somewhere only I can go. Do I have time for another one, Mark? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Stop me, because now I'm on a, now
No,
I'm
you're on a roll. It's perfect.
Thank you. This one's going to be published in another publication in the spring, but I want to share it with you because it, again, speaks to what Amy's going to be talking about. Sitting in the memory care center. Sitting in the memory care center watching you, I wonder if death would be better. Then you lift your rose petal nails and touch a finger to my cheek. Pretty, I think you say. I pull my chair closer. A whisper. Pretty, you say. You are somewhere in there. I am out here, my hand in your palm. And if I have time for one more, my
Yeah.
son always says that all my poems are sad, so I'm going to read one that's less sad. This is called Dear Miss Blakely. Dear Miss Blakely, and I should just tell you, Sarah Blakely is the founder of Spanx. So I'll give you a little heads up on that. Dear Miss Blakely, I noticed that your website says your purpose is to elevate women. So since you invented Spanx, I have a few questions. Why did you replace the original Thin Stinks panty bodysuit with Thin Stinks 2.0? Miss Blakely, I've been buying 1.0 for years, and 2.0 is not more innovative, like the bot in your customer service portal replied when I complained about 2.0's construction. The snaps unsnap, Miss Blakely. When I sit, I hear click, click, click like a mini train clacking down my body's tracks. It's so unexpected, Miss Blakely. My old version has hooks, not all that comfortable, but it stays closed, and the compression panel on the new edition makes it hard to breathe. Why should women be compressed, Miss Blakely? While I'm thinking about it, I should ask if you've ever tried to pee through the opening on your Thin Stinks mid-thigh bodysuit. It's impossible. Miss Blakely, once you're on the toilet, you must use 2 fingers to separate the nylon seams. Then try to make the stream hit the water. Miss Blakely, can you pee in a straight line? I bet anything you can't. On top of that, your promo materials brag about her story, not history. The language is clever, but if you really want to write about women's history, then you could start by tracing the trajectory of girdles, how generations of women have girded their bodies to satisfy the male gaze. And let's be honest, Miss Blakely, shapewear is nothing more than a euphemism for girdles. Euphemisms are dangerous, Miss Blakely. Why won't you say it? After all, you sell the idea that it's fine to erase your lines, to smooth your body, to disappear. I mean, look at me, Miss Blakely, into my 7th decade, and I'm still compelled to wear a bodysuit. And no matter what you call it, Miss Blakely, shapewear, as if women are misshapen, is a close cousin to the corset. Miss Blakely, how can you claim Spanx is for women by women when you tout the idea that breasts, butts, waists, and thighs are problems in need of a solution? What should be solved, Miss Blakely, are the untruths underpinning the litany of laws that target women and how they spread viruses that vanish of women's choices. It's like those snaps. One comes undone, and before you know it, your body is exposed to the whims of strangers. Miss Blakely, please work to unbind a woman's body from rules that disempower her. How about it, Miss Blakely? By the way, I wonder if you could let me know what's holding up the delivery of my new bodysuit. I have somewhere to go and I want to look my best.
That was brilliant, Linda. You should check out the comments where you're getting quite a lot of love and agreement. And I would say I don't get the sense that what people are calling for is a return to corsets. I don't think that's what everyone's thinking. Um, but yeah, wow, that was very powerful.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And as noted, those poems that were nominated for awards, I believe very much deserved it. I think it's a good opportunity since the microfiction nomination came up. That was sort of recent news to me, um, that poetry journals could nominate for the microfiction award uh, if they wish. So it really worked out, honestly, because since really the inception of One Art, part of the name was to be all encompassing, and that has to do a little bit with before focusing almost exclusively on poetry, I edited all genres, and so it's nice to be able, people may notice that some of the work that sneaks in is a little bit like Flash CNF, Flash creative nonfiction, or like prose poetry that sort of veers on the line of what might be flash fiction, or autofiction, or short things by any other name. But generally, at the end of the day, I feel all writing is writing is writing. A rose is a rose is a rose. And so, yeah, good writing is good writing. And anything that takes the shape that looks like it could be considered fiction, it's nice to have another opportunity and space to nominate for. So just thought I'd share a little explanation for that part. But just once more to touch again on your incredible reading. Thank you for that.
Thank
Truly
you for
wonderful.
asking. I'm really honored to be here with all these fine poets and everybody who came. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And certainly, last but not least, we have Amy Small-McKinney with us. Amy is a Montgomery County, Pennsylvania Poet Laureate Emeritus. She's also the author of 6 books, including 3 full-length books and 3 chapbooks. I have one of them actually right by me here. One Day I'm a Field. Amy most recently has published her book, And You Think It Ends, from Glasslyre Press. And I have a link to where it's available on Amazon that I can share. It was released in March 2025. Her poems have appeared in many journals, including American Poetry Review, Pedestal, Tahoma Review, Verse Daily, and Amy's contributed to many anthologies, including Rumors, Secrets, and Lies, poems about pregnancy, abortion, and choice from Eninga Press, as well as 101 Jewish Poems for the Third Millennium from Ashland Poetry Press. And her poems have been translated into Korean and Romanian, which is very cool. So I will drop a link in the chat to learn a little more about Amy. And Amy, over to you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Mark. I'm just so crazy about you and Louisa. And we should add that I've been published by One Art. So
But of course.
I love being part of the family. And thank you, Susan and Laurie and Linda. And Linda, I'm following you, and I don't know how to be funny, and I don't know how to be accessible because I'm not a narrative poet. So I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be interesting. Anyway, here I go. I'm going to read from my new book, And You Think It Ends. And I just want to say that it is primarily about the body, a woman's body, and begins with a quotation, hold on, by the poet Linda Hogan. And it says, when the body wishes to speak, she will. And there are several sections of this. And the first is more the stories of other women, coupled with my own story. Sometimes it's difficult to tell when mine or theirs begin, but I feel very comfortable with that. And this poem is called Being, and it has a subtitle, Cemetery and Hotel. When you were raped, you didn't call it rape. Couldn't listen to the stones inside you cry corrosion. You wanted to believe it was love's hum. You didn't know the dead beneath their inscribed headstones were seeping into you like sap streaks disease. And you a maple that didn't know it was dying. You didn't listen to yourself, tell yourself what was and wasn't, or believe your own body. Its gravel of shock, its heart mouths widening, suffocating out of water. You were young. You couldn't say it aloud until you lay like a beached dolphin on a hotel bed where a non-doctor hovered over you, until the seed-shaped thing inside rolled out of you, almost forgiveness. The next poem is from the next section, and it's about how I returned from the loss of my late husband to who I've become. How I returned. When you died, my body went dark, not just dark, but folded into itself, became a cave, refused to return to flesh. When you died, I could not wear clothes on this cave body, my entrance a mouth spitting out cloth and hope. When you died, I called to you, come back, but my words became elements gobbling invisible space. I waited for you to return to me, to my circle of not seeing. Then I stopped, welcomed home instead the insistent sparrow of myself. What I remember. The young man would not listen to my no in the overgrown cemetery. I cannot remember his face. Remember blonde hair, not a name, not a face. Memory is the sister of winter. It pecks at me like a dark-eyed junco, a snowbird. I imagine him sitting by a window watching his grandkids toss a ball. Does he think of me, or was I fleeting as spit? Soon the locust leaves will turn yellow, burn with injustice as winter pushes in. I don't want to become invisible. In winter, some spiders survive inside silk cocoons hidden beneath a leaf. I never saw him again. I saw his seed drown in a hotel toilet's graveyard. At 20, I refused to bear or name it. Today, I name myself, seen and remembered. In winter, woodpeckers peck away at sorrow. It's time, it's time, it's time. So here's one to my daughter. My brother's here, but I didn't get one prepared. I didn't bring a poem, sorry. Anyway, but this is for my daughter. You are still my daughter. My body steel wool and parchment, literal and figurative, soft vowel, hard consonant. My body lavender and gunmetal gray, its long corridor leading back toward another. Though you are 34 years old, still my body hears yours, though miles away, heart in mouth, when I catch your sorrow or joy and forget whose body I carry, mine a well-used oak table, or yours the orchid you brought to me years ago that keeps reblooming. So the next poems become a little happier, or as happy as my poems get. This is called A Widow Travels to an Art Museum. I'd gone to an Alice Neal retrospective in New York, and one of her poems was her sitting naked in this striped chair. A widow travels to an art museum. The train's body cloudy as cataracts. Slowly my body returns to me. Though Rodin's genius of eternal rest is without head and arms, nothing essential is missing. He dares sorrow, leans into it. Nothing is lost in Neil's self-portrait, her breast resting flat against her belly, green shading, she's draped in earth, blue tension outlines her, the sky outlines her. I sit with her for a moment in the striped chair, rise alone. I am beginning to accept what I have lost. Blue leans into me like new love. So I wasn't going to read this, but it was in one art, so I'm going to. A widow opens her window. Crepe myrtle leaps out from behind the fence, red lips wide open, wet from rain. A revolt of use refuses to turn away. Antonyms of refuse: allow, accept, meet. I see my new lover walking the path to my house, where we'll meet, not a pristine fence. The blood oranges inside, our heart's wild luggage. So this poem is finally speaking to my body. I wrote it a letter, and it's after I had heart problems, I had cancer, I was young, I didn't like my body. You all know this story. And so this was my letter to my body. Dear body, it's a prose poem. I have spent my life fixated on your flaws, wishing you were someone else, delicate and disarming as spider silk. Others viewed us as porcupined. It was not fury, but fear that forced me to quill you. Nearly passed down those sorrow-pointed swords to my daughter, self-doubt always hungry for a new home. Now you hand me a damaged heart. A heart does not need to hide forbidden candy, does not need to consume the world in one sitting, does not compare the width of her skinny legs to the span of her butt. Our heart, the size of two clenched fists, needs only to beat. Oh, body, is it too late to say I love you? Remember, and how can we forget those rebellious breast cells? How at first I longed to ignore them. You wouldn't let me. I welcomed in toxic warriors to quash the disease. We were both grateful. Our hearts sang, yes, sang. This weakened but stubborn heart. And our bodies almost 60,000 miles of blood vessels. How we follow that trail, we would cross the world twice. Unless, of course, we stop somewhere, having never seen a beach like this or trees like that. And then we would come home, wouldn't we? Okay, it says I have 5 more minutes. So this is when my body decides to talk to me. And actually, it decides to speak to several me's, at least 2 of me's. My body speaks to the women it has carried. What was taught by mother, father, world, the self's division, 2 women inside of me, one refusing, one longing to know me, scuffling for room and recognition. What happened when our daughter was born? Miracle of monsoon and ooze. Briefly, the women inside loved one another. Oh, but memory's long story. A psalm rubbing against rape and unsafe abortion. Stirrups, damage, loss, shut down again. The women inside mute, exhausted, stalled. Now at 70, this body an underworld cave. Excuse me. Now at 70, this body an underwater cave created from losses erosion. Home to blue balloonfish, angelfish, green turtles that can hold their breath for 7 hours. Say it simply, the wonder of being alive. Say it simply. Why now? We were resigned to nothing, nothing, no one. Then, like ancient animals carved on cave walls, the women held each other, fused into one woman. Amy, you learn to love me, yourself, what time remains. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much, Amy. I love
Thanks.
how all the poems by our readers seem kind of interconnected
Hi.
in many ways, right? There's definitely that sense. And I don't know, Amy, I think there's more narrative there than you let on, saying that we were to expect more strictly lyric poems. So I felt some narrative creeping in.
Just don't look at my new work yet.
Oh, okay, there we go. Okay. Uh, but yeah, truly stunning work from everyone today. Um, so yes, that dovetailed well. Amy speaking a lot on, subjects about age and There was a notable line about not feeling invisible with age, which I know is an experience many feel at a certain point. And so I hope, I'll put a link in the chat, I hope that folks will consider coming to Amy's upcoming workshop. Thank you again to all of our readers. I am going to stop recording now, and then we can hang out and chat a little bit.